I spent over 30 hours testing all the moneymakers in Palia so you wouldn't have to. Go grab that comfy cozy drink and let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome to Jade Mist Gaming, Jade Mist here, and today we're back in the world of Palia checking out all the ways you can make some hard-earned money with the new 2024 economy update changes. But before we do, be sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell to get notified of all of my future cozy gaming content, and be sure to follow me over on Twitch for some more gaming shenanigans alongside YouTube. Alright, now first off, I want to give a huge shout out to some amazing people who jumped in to help when I needed the help the most with the research in this video. Thank you to two of my mods, Woflie and Samantha, as well as a few amazing content creators here on YouTube, Sunflower Bear, Lisa Beth Gaming, JoJo's Gaming Garden, and Poofy Crossing. You can find all of their links in the description below. Be sure you head on over, let them know Jade sent you over. You won't regret it. They're absolutely amazing content creators, and you can always find Woflie and Samantha in the chats modding for me over on Twitch and hanging out on YouTube. Alrighty, now on to the video. For those of you that aren't aware, Palia had a recent update that focused mainly on changes to the economy in hopes of being able to better balance the way we make money in the game. Be sure to check out this video over here in the cards where I go over all the main points of the update, which of course led to the #1 question being asked in Palia. What are the best ways to make money in Palia now? Now, while there are tons of ways to earn some gold in the game, we're just gonna look at the main 6 different skills today to see which ones are the most effective and easiest methods without getting overcomplicated and stressed out. So we have mining, hunting, bug catching, fishing, gardening, and cooking. Let's kick things off with mining. With the introduction of starstones into the game, mining became one of the easiest ways to make some really good money and fast. But the recent economy update nerfed the value of these stones. This isn't the first time they've adjusted the values either. As you can see here from the chart that I created, the progression from when they were originally introduced versus how much they're worth now. Now, however, with the nerf of the value came an increase in the drops. So I do find that I tend to get some more drops lately, especially over in Bahari. Also, it's important to note that I am using exquisite tools here today. The type of pickaxe you have doesn't affect the drop you get, but it does deal a different amount of damage. And if you don't have the exquisite pickaxe, you do need the fine pickaxe in order to mine Palium, but we're not going to factor Palium into the income, only starstones, so you don't really need it. So let's see exactly how much you can make and if it's even worth the time anymore. I ran 3 rounds of 30 minutes each in both Kilima and Bahari for a total of 6 rounds. Each round, I ran every inch possible of the map, hitting every single rock and clay node I could find. I then calculated the average for each zone and multiplied it by 2 to get a per hour rate. The results came in with 5k per hour running Kilima and 7.6k running Bahari. The top 3 most valuable starstones are only found in Bahari, but there are still plenty of good ones over in Kilima like emeralds. But as you can see here with the numbers, it's more beneficial to hit up Bahari for starstones. Now also please keep in mind that these numbers are based on my personal runs. This can vary from person to person depending on when the rocks have spawned, how fast you get to them, and which tools you are using. Also, if you're a new player, you can easily run this as a party with another player that has an exquisite tool and take advantage of the brand new party looting feature that was introduced recently in the economy update. So even if you're brand new with only makeshift tools, you can still get the loot that comes with only higher end tools like Palium. Now moving on, let's take a look at hunting. Again, I did 3 rounds of 30 minutes in each zone and then calculated the average and per hour rate. I also tested specific arrows for each round using the exquisite bow. I used roughly 300 to 400 hours per round, so be sure you stock up on tons of arrows when you go hunting. When it comes to the type of the bow you're using, take note that the upgrades between bow types is only for the distance your arrow travels and the amount of durability it holds. A standard bow has 1,000 durability while an exquisite one has 3,000. So basically you can shoot more arrows with the exquisite bow before it downgrades versus what you can with the standard or fine. And also, just like mining, keep in mind you can party up and share the loot if you go hunting with somebody else that has a better bow. Also, I sell everything from hunting, by the way. I sell the hides, the fur, the meat, etc. Feel free to keep a stack of everything for crafting if you're newer to the game and you haven't hoarded. And if you want to do some cooking, there are quite a few things that you can keep that you can use for crafting later on. So when it comes to Kilima, I average 7.2k gold per hour using only makeshift arrows, and then 12.1k with standard arrows. Bahari, on the other hand, averaged 16.2k with standard arrows and 21.6k with slowdown arrows, and 20.6 per hour with fine arrows. I did have to go repair every 30 minutes though, so keep that in mind when you're running around. I also didn't factor in any of the magical animals and their loot. You can definitely raise this figure by adding in dispel arrows and shooting the 3 different magical animals. Now, another thing I realized is just how underrated the chappas are, specifically the striped chappas. Now, I know out of all of the creatures you can hunt in Palia, chappas are technically the less valuable. However, they are highly concentrated over on the south side of Bahari, down by Pulsewater Plains and Hideaway Bluff, meaning you get more bang for your buck. Yes, you get tons more gold for Elder Antlers and Banded Mujin mains, but since they're so scattered around the northern Bahari and hidden in trees, you spend more of your time chopping trees and running around than actually getting hits. Whereas if you hang out in the southern Bahari, you'll still get Elder Cernyx and you'll get the striped chappas along with a few regular Mujins, all in a smaller concentrated area. So you spend less time running around and more time shooting, resulting in more loot and more gold. You can also find the magical Azure Chappa and hit it with about 3 to 4 dispel arrows for a chance at a very nicely valuable Azure Chappa tail. Again, it's less valuable than the other magical creatures, but it's much easier to get when using dispel arrows. Now, I also wanted to see how others did doing this experiment, so here are the results from some of the amazing helpers that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, using different arrows and different bows to give you a better idea of what you can get with different tools or arrows. Now, all the helpers here ran 30 minutes for their rounds. We have Poofy Crossing bringing in about 14.3k in Bahari using an exquisite bow and a mix of fine, slowdown, and dispel arrows. She also did 2 more rounds in Kilima, bringing in 6.5k per hour with makeshift arrows and 5.2k with standard arrows. Then Jojo came in with 16.6 per hour running Kilima using a fine bow with fine arrows. And we have Woflie bringing in 2.2 using a makeshift bow and standard arrows in Kilima, and 6k per hour with a fine bow and fine arrows in Kilima. And last but not least, we have Lisa Beth bringing in 6.4k an hour with an exquisite bow and makeshift arrows, and 10.5k with standard arrows, both in Kilima. So you see here, the tools definitely do make a difference in the way you make money. Obviously, using your exquisite tools will be the most optimal one, but you can still bring in a good chunk of money from other bows and other tools. After collecting all this research from my runs and all of the helpers, it's clear to see that you can bring in quite a bit still from hunting, anywhere from about 2k to 21k per hour, depending on your tools and your arrows. Next up, we have bug catching. Now, this category is pretty simple and straightforward, running 30-minute rounds in each zone using an exquisite belt with standard bombs. And here are the results. Kilima brought in 7.8k per hour and Bahari brought in 8.9k per hour. Now, these are not using lures, it's just simply running around each zone, hitting anything that moves. Also, the value of flowers and silk thread is not factored into the numbers here, it's strictly bugs being sold. Now, if you would like to sell your flowers and your silk thread, if you have no use for them whatsoever, feel free to throw them into the mix to bring your income up a little bit. I recommend keeping your silk thread so that you can actually make some silk for crafting later. Now, Jojo ran Bahari for an hour using a makeshift belt and standard bombs, bringing in 4k for her hour. The difference between the makeshift belt and the more upgraded ones is that each level increases the chance to daze bugs, making it faster to catch them, so it's 100% recommended to upgrade your belt. You can incorporate other types of bombs such as sneaky bombs, sticky bombs, or even the supreme smoke bombs that apparently has a perfect catch rate. I personally only use standard bombs as it's just easier for me. I go buy them in bulk from Zeki, to be completely honest, so for me, it's just a lot easier that way. Now, the location of where you're bug catching also plays an important role here. The important thing to keep in mind is where are the bugs most highly concentrated. So just like hunting, we want to spend the least amount of time running around between bugs versus actually catching them. For Kilima, the best area I found is around Mirror Fields and Leap Hopper Hills and a little bit of the shorelines while running around in a full circle. As for Bahari, I stick around Pulsewater Plains, Hideaway Buff, and a bit of the outskirts to run around in a circle. I like the southern area of Bahari because there's a good amount of the blue Bahari glow bugs that go for 145 gold each. I was even lucky enough to get a hold of the rainbow-tipped butterfly in this area for the bundle. Now, of course, you can go anywhere in Palia to catch critters. The key is finding those spots that are easy enough to run around in circles, hitting tons of bugs with as little downtime in between catches. If you find a sweet spot that doesn't require you to run around like crazy, stick with that spot and be sure to let me know in the comments below, where is your go-to area? Now let's add lures into the mix. The honey lure is an item that you can craft or buy from Ani in the guild that allows you to lure in a ton of bugs in one general area for about 3 minutes per lure. This is what will take your bug catching to the next level and really bring in a ton of gold. Sunflower Bear and I ran the experiment of doing a 30-minute round of bug catching as a party in Bahari with 6 lures. We did 3 lures over by Pulsewater Plains and then 3 other lures over by the Flooded Steppes during evening hours of 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. I brought in 12.4k gold while she also brought in 10.7k. Again, this was 30 minutes. Turn that into per hour and it's 24k and 21k. So if y'all can get your hands on a bunch of lures, this is the way to go when it comes to bug catching. Just be sure you're conscious of your belt and the durability and go repair as often as you can. Next, let's dive right into the fishing skill. This skill was by far one of the most time-consuming to do the research on, but it is well worth it. This time I did 10-minute rounds 3 times in each fishable area using glowworms, regular worms, and no bait at all. In Kilima, there's ponds, lakes, and rivers, and Bahari has the cave, coasts, and the rivers, and they also have ponds. But something you should note about ponds is that whether you're in Bahari or Kilima or even on your own plot, they share the same fish type, unlike the Bahari rivers versus the Kilima rivers. They have completely different fish. The only difference about the pond on your plot is that you'll never get the little bubble hotspots that give you star quality fish. Also, Kilima does have a cave that you can fish in that gives you the same type of fish as Bahari caves right back here in the ruins next to where you first spawned in the game as a new player. However, there are no hotspots here, so you'll never get star quality fish. You're better off fishing in the Bahari cave. Now again, I'm using an exquisite rod with no special rod boosters or food buffs. We'll talk about all of that in just a little bit. After calculating the averages and the per hour totals in Kilima, the best place to fish with no bait and regular bait is the river, while the most profitable are the ponds using glowworms, bringing in the most gold at 17.4k per hour. Doing the same over in Bahari, you can see here the best place to fish with no bait would be the coast, while the cave is better with regular worms and glowworms. And considering the best spot in Kilima was the pond with glowworms, your best bet is to just stick to Bahari altogether for fishing, since the ponds in Bahari and Kilima share the same fish. Heck, you don't even have to go to Bahari if you don't want to fish in the ponds. Just hang out in your own plot, grinding out some fish if you're in a pinch for some gold. Now, there's a few things that can help you out when it comes to fishing. Number 1, if people are around you fishing, it'll give you a nice little fishing buff that will give you 10% reduction in hook time per stack. You may have noticed from time to time that this little icon on the top of your screen pops up when other people are fishing around you. The more people around you, the more this number goes up, maxing out at 5. So if you want to hook your fish faster, get together with some friends or find a spot that other people are fishing in. Tip number 2 is rod boosters. If you want to add some rod boosters, which are the special hooks that you can add to your rod, you can get them from the Fishing Guild shop or by crafting. You have your minor rod health booster, major hook time booster, major rod recovery booster, major safe zone size booster, and major safe zone speed booster. Now, tip number 3, use buffs from cooking. On top of these booster hooks, you can stack cooking buffs to help with every difficult fish. fisherman brew, fish stew, sashimi, trout dinner, and sushi. Those are all of the meals that currently have buffs in the game. The good news is that all these buffs stack on top of having booster hooks and the fishing with friends buffs. If you get all of these meals, I highly recommend it to help reel in those pesky fish like the ancient fish and the long-nosed unicorn fish. Now, if you don't have the recipe for these dishes, you can always join a cooking party and still get the meal with friends. And lastly, you may also come across the fact that you are full after eating too many meals when your focus bar is already full. So how do you stack all these cooking buffs when your focus is full? Simple. Go into your settings, click gameplay settings and scroll slightly down and then enable eat when full. You can now eat as many meals as your heart desires to help with your fishing buffs. All right, let's talk gardening. There are tons of ways that you can set up your gardens for multiple things. There's so many guides out there right now on how to optimize your garden to help keep things constantly watered, maintain harvest boosts and quality boosts, etc. But we're here to look for an easy, simple, fast method to make money with gardening without constantly worrying about the strategy, what to plant, where to plant it, none of that. We just want simple drop and go. So the simple answer is tomatoes and potatoes. Tomatoes and potatoes are both water retaining crops, meaning when you plant these crops, the crops surrounding them will retain water, keeping them fully watered at all times. You will have to come in from time to time to remove weeds, but you won't have to sit there and water them every single cycle. You could use the weed prevention fertilizer, but I personally prefer the harvest boost fertilizer to get more bang for my buck. Now, the simple layout I've used countless of times is intermittent rows of crops. One row for tomatoes to start, then one row of potatoes, and so on. The tomatoes give you 4 harvest opportunities, while the potatoes are a one-time harvest. Now, you're more than welcome to go ahead and sell the crops as is to get some quick cash, but that's not where the real money making is with gardening. For the next steps, you'll need to get seed collectors and preserve jars. I personally have 6 seed collectors and 6 preserve jars. I then take my star quality tomatoes and turn them into pickled tomatoes and I sell those. The star value for pickled potatoes is 51 gold. While it's not the best valued product from the available artisans, it still brings a good chunk of gold, especially for passive income. I tend to keep the regular quality crops and turn them all into seeds for replanting, but you can surely sell all of those to get some more income if you want. Now, going back to our setup here, I planted 36 potatoes and 45 potatoes and ran the entire 10-day cycle in my game and brought in 22.6k, which converts to 2.2k per hour. There is a website that I have linked in the description below that allows you to plan your garden ahead of time so that you can optimize it the way that you want it. Now, to test it out, I did plug in all the crops in the website the way I did it in my game to compare the figures, and it was almost spot on, as you can see here in their calculations. And last but not least, we have the cooking skill. Cooking in Palia can be quite intimidating, and a lot of players prefer to not even touch this skill. But I'm here to tell you, fear not. You can still make some good money with cooking whether you're a solo player or a cake party enthusiast. So naturally, the first thing most people would do is search for which Palia meal is worth the most gold. And the answer to that question is the Mujing Bahari dish. Now, when you go to the list of required ingredients, you'll get slammed with this very lengthy list. It's quite a lot of stuff. Yeah, you can buy a lot of it from Zeki, but some things you will have to grow yourself, like the spicy peppers. Now, what we're trying to do here is make money fast and easy without complicating things too much with a ton of ingredients. So what I do is look for dishes with very minimal ingredients and a good gold value. About 5 or less ingredients is a good number for me that are not hard to get. Sushi is a good one, but dairy cloves and heat root can be quite a grind to get, so I tend to not focus on that one for money making. Now, the top dishes that stand out to me and are easy to make are the apple pies and the blueberry pies. But you're obviously going to need apples and blueberries for this, so you will need to unlock the apple seeds from the guild store with 280 gardening medals and And blueberries are also available from the guild store, but only for 45 gardening medals, so that one's a lot easier to get. Now on top of the seeds, you will need to get both recipes. The blueberry pie recipe can be bought from Reth once you've leveled your cooking skill to level 6. The apple pie recipe, on the other hand, can't be bought. You'll need to level Delia to level 3 friendship and get access to her room, where you'll find the recipe sitting in a book. So what can you do with cooking while you're waiting for all of these items and you're a solo player? Well, there's not many big dishes that would be worth the time and effort to make quick cash, so if you're really pressed for gold and want to level up your cooking, I would use the campfire and just make grilled mushrooms. It's the only grilled recipe that doesn't equalize the value after cooking it. It actually gives you a small profit with both regular and star quality results. So for example, cooking fish will give you the same final value of the actual fish you used, so if you use a fish worth 155 gold, your grilled fish will also be worth 155 gold. If you grill 2 different fish at 2 different values, the final value will be the sum of those 2 fish. So it's definitely not worth grilling your fish. You'll also see tons of other videos recommending to make fisherman brew to make some quick cash at the beginning, but honestly, running around foraging for the ingredients isn't worth it when it's basically the same value after making it. The only way it'll be even worth a tiny bit more is if you get lucky and get the star quality version of it. But even with that, it's not worth the time running around looking for those 2 ingredients that you need. There are easier and faster ways to make money, as you've learned already in this video. Use the fisherman brew, on the other hand, for your fishing buffs, like we talked about before. Now, apple pies can be made within 1 minute each round, and each round gives you 3 pies. Regular quality apple pies go for 109 gold, while star quality goes for 163 gold. I was able to do 30 rounds in 30 minutes, resulting in 90 pies. In 1 hour, that's 180 pies. So depending on the quality of your pie, you can get anywhere from 19.6k to 29.3k gold per hour. That's actually pretty good as a solo player. Now, if you go with blueberry pies, you can get anywhere from 11.8k to 17.8k per hour. Still really good. Now, the really big money is made when you join in on cooking parties with multiple people. The beauty of cooking parties is that you only need one of the ingredients to partake, unless you're just using the oven, in which case you don't need a single resource to join. As long as you complete an action while the recipe is being cooked, you'll reap the benefits. This is why it's better to cook the more complex meals in a large group. There are tons of Discord servers that have group finders, including mine if you want to try and find friends to cook with. But there's also an amazing website that I've linked down here below in the description that has a special Palia party planner where you can sign up for a variety of different cooking parties and you can put what station you want to be in. I plan on using this party planner for upcoming streams, so be sure you subscribe and follow me over on Twitch so that you can get on in the party action. Now, if y'all want a more detailed guide on everything related to cooking parties, let me know in the comments below. And if enough of y'all ask for it, I can definitely work on that for you. Now, the main dish that goes around for cooking parties is the celebration cake, as it's always been the most profitable one for a cake party. That is until the Mujin Bahari dish came out with the Mujins. Now, those 2 would be the top 2 dishes to cook during cake parties. I still see more of the celebration cakes over the Mujin Bahari dish because, again, it's a lot of stuff for the Mujin Bahari dish, and people are just more comfortable with the cake parties. Now, before jumping into cake parties, there are a few things that you should know. Back in the day when cake parties were first popularized, the recipe required some sort of fruit jam, whether it was apple or blueberry. Now, the good news is that the recipe doesn't require jam anymore, only the actual fruit plus sugar now. So if you've been making jam and hoarding them so you can be ready for a cake party, well, you can go ahead and sell all that jam now. Now, another very important thing to note is that the kind of fruit you use will have an effect on the value of the cake you're making. I've gone ahead and baked all the different cakes so that you wouldn't have to, and here are the results. There are a total of 8 different cakes, all with different values. That's because each of these cakes were baked using a different combination of fruits. There are only 2 fruits in the game currently, and only 4 combinations you can use for cakes. 3 apples, 3 blueberries, 1 apple with 2 blueberries, or 2 apples with 1 blueberry. And of course, you have your regular quality versus your star quality, giving you 8 possibilities. Now, the most valuable cake is the star quality apple cake using 3 apples, giving you 280 gold per cake. But if you use 3 blueberries instead, you drop down to 238 gold per cake for star quality. Mix up the fruit and you get 265 gold using 2 apples and 1 blueberry, and then you drop down to 252 for 1 apple and 2 blueberries. And of course, you have your regular cake values all right here. At the end of the day, they are all extremely valuable regardless of the fruit. Cake parties will always be a profitable endeavor, but if you really want the highest value, you stick with star apple cakes. So how much can you actually make with these cake parties? Now, the results per hour will be a bit different for everybody depending on how many people there are in the party, how long each person actually takes to complete their role, etc, etc. Now, Lisa Beth Gaming had the pleasure of participating in a 500 times apple cake party, and that lasted a total of 8 hours, ending up bringing in 380,000 gold. That's 47,600 gold per hour in her case. Now, when I say a 500 times apple cake party, that doesn't mean it's 500 cakes. It's 500 rounds. That gives you 3 cakes in each round. That's 1,500 cakes that she did. Now, if every single cake was a star quality apple-based cake, that would have brought in 420,000 gold. It's an insane amount of money that can be made. Do we want to spend 8 hours cooking? Probably not. Lisa, I don't think, wants to do that again. So let's take a look at more common cake parties of 50-time cakes. Now, again, when somebody says 50 times or 100 times, keep in mind that that means rounds. So a 50 times cake party would be 150 cakes you end up baking. From what I'm seeing around the community, the average time it takes is about an hour to complete 50 rounds of cakes. And let's say it's just regular quality apple-based cakes. You would be bringing in a minimum of 28,000 per hour. Star quality would bring you in 42,000 per hour. So realistically, you can bank on average anywhere between 28,000 to 42,000 with apple-based cakes and cake parties. Now, you'll also hear and read around that putting your cakes into glowworm farms ends up doubling your profit, but this is not the case anymore. So please do not put your cakes into your glowworm farms unless you're farming for worms and you really don't care about the money. Yes, they used to give you a higher bang for your buck, giving you tons of glowworms that you can sell, but changes to the glowworm values have been adjusted, killing any sort of profit using cakes in your farms. I honestly would have hated to have to wait for all these cakes to process worms, so just sell your cakes in the shipping bins, y'all. Forget the worm farmer out. So now that we've gone over all the different skills and seen just how much gold you can make with each one, let's put them together here visually and see how they stack up against each other and see once and for all which skill truly is the best for making money. For mining, the best strategy is selling starstones mined from Bahari, which can bring in an average of 7.6k per hour. Hunting comes in at a best average of 21.6k per hour using slowdown arrows in southern Bahari. Bug catching brings in an average of 21 to 24k per hour using lures and being partied up, hitting up concentrated areas. But if you don't have lures and you're running solo, you can bring in 9k per hour in Bahari. Fishing brings in the most by fishing in the Bahari caves with glowworms averaging 20k per hour. Add in hook boosters and cooking buffs and that number is sure to go up a bit. Gardening is more of a passive income, so it translates more to a per cycle basis versus per hour, bringing in an average of 20 to 22k per 10 in-game day cycles. But if you really want to calculate that as a per hour basis, it would convert to 2,200 gold per hour. And last but not least, cooking brings in 19.6 through 29.3k as a solo cooker with apple pies, while going the apple-based cake party route can easily bring in 28,000 to 42,000 per hour. Our clear winner here is obviously the apple-based cake parties at 28 to 42k per hour. However, there is quite a decent balance between various skills, with most of them being in the 20k range per hour aside from mining. With the recent nerf that mining took in this latest economy update, it's definitely not balanced at all with the other skills anymore, and I personally think that there should be a buff to come back to the mining a little bit so that they can kind of equal out more to 10 to 15k per hour, just to have a better balance between skills. And there you have it, folks, close to 40 hours of endless mining, bug catching, fishing, cooking, hunting, and gardening, all so you wouldn't have to do it. Thank you again to my amazing helpers who participated in this crazy grind and for helping me get some of these numbers. Now it's your turn to let me know how you're making money in the game and what has worked best for you. I would love to know. Be sure to also like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell to get notified of all of my future cozy gaming content. All right, guys, until the next time, happy gaming. Bye.